they don't say that, because then what would people think?
They'll think I'm
So
Really can fill that out.
I know that's beautiful though. Great to have you back, Ali, our resident HR specialist. Winter has come, dark nights, massive storm. I drove through a blizzard, a flood, high winds, and then sunshine all in one day.
Just in your driveway.
Just getting out of Aberdour.
Typical day in Scotland.
It is crazy though. Weather is sitting in, and I think we're winding down towards the end of the year. And on everybody's mind at the moment is Christmas parties, the do's and the don'ts. Do you find that there are a lot of issues that jump up out of Christmas parties? You don't have to share the stories, but I could imagine that is going to be.
I think we should be sharing some stories.
Well, is this why there's a high, what's the word again? The stats show that in January is divorce season and February is divorce season. Is this just all from Christmas parties?
I think it's spending too much time with your family over Christmas and New Year is what I say.
But it is Christmas time. Christmas time is coming up. A lot of companies are having staff get-togethers or staff nights out. Do you think, is there a lot of issues that come out of nights like that?
Yeah, we're normally quite busy in December as a result of at least one major issue. Normally somebody's done something that they're not supposed to have done. So yeah, probably not as bad as it was years ago, I have to say. Right. I think back in the day, I think it was a lot worse. But yeah, there's still a few problematic Christmas parties that kind of come up from time to time.
We need an example.
Oh, I'm not putting anybody on the spot.
No.
Call them Brian or Stacey.
Now, what I have seen before, though, so if I remember back, some of the larger events in years gone by, probably like the sales team and an installation team having a massive kind of fight, just departments not getting on with some of the bigger. The bigger kind of parties. So that results in an issue because there's fighting, reputational damage to the company because everybody sees that's such and such a company at the party, nice fancy hotel, and they're all scrapping in the car park. So that's our headache on the Monday, which is great.
It's like that episode of Peaky Blinders. I don't know if you've seen it. It's like he gets them all together. It's like, right, no fucking fighting, no fighting, just put it out there.
And then it all kicks off.
Kicks off.
It's interesting though, because it is that time of the year, and I think here, if I take it in different countries, there's different tolerances for what would be offences or what would be classed as an offence. But I think sexual harassment is probably going to be the one that's right at the top. Because I mean, there's been changes in legislation lately about sexual harassment, and I don't know how many companies know about that.
Yeah, so we've been doing quite a bit of work on that. So the big change is making sure that you've trained your staff on it, so you've raised awareness of it, so they kind of know what to do in the event of an issue and how to report it. And then there's obviously making sure you've trained your staff on that as well and updating the policy. So we've been doing quite a bit of that. That changed in October. And a Christmas party or a kind of social event is an extension of the workplace. So if somebody behaves inappropriately at an organised work event, then it's exactly the same as what could happen in the office between Monday and Friday, 9 till 5. So making sure people know that before they go to a Christmas party is usually
very important, Johnny. You need to have a chat with the team.
But I have to say, actually, see in recent years, I don't know if it's kind of since COVID, but actually a lot of businesses don't seem to do Christmas parties these days. Not as big as it was back in the not as big as it used to be.
The drinking culture's changed as well.
Aye.
Like it's not the same as it was back in the day.
Aye.
It's all kind of zero now.
Aye.
It's just that, well, we've booked a party at that IDTC. Is it IDTC? No, it's not IDTC. That's a different training thing.
That's a different party, but okay.
That's a different party, aye. At the conference centre.
Yeah.
And before we did it at the football club. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we did notice that there wasn't as many people there. Yeah. I
think you've got a couple of things, cost of living, big expense on businesses as well. So, and people's kind of social habits have kind of changed a little bit. So, and then you've probably got hybrid kind of working, so they're probably not in the office as much. So then going on a night out, like, don't really know them as well. So, or don't know that person as well. So there's a bit of that.
And the anxieties from some people.
Yeah.
You know? So there's a lot of changes. Talking about changes though, what the hell's happening with NI then? the whole
budget,
the whole
circling
budget,
back,
the
yeah.
crisis.
What have you seen in the people sector? Because people are the lifeblood of a business, and
So biggest thing for that we've seen with our kind of client base is a lot of the clients telling us that there's a massive increase on their salary costs, and that's before they factor in any salary increases for next year. So we're seeing lots of clients kind of telling us there's a six-figure increase in NIC, and that's anything from 100 grand up to 250 grand that we're seeing right away. So that's a lot of money that businesses have to find. What they're then saying is with national living wage increases going up in April as well, there's then, they've got to find that kind of cash. But then what they're also saying is the people who are probably just above that threshold, there's now an expectation that they look for a similar type increase, whereas what they were kind of looking at was probably an increase around about 2 or 3%. And I think if you're then just going to increase salaries by that level for the guys that are just above the national living wage, then you might have a bit of a retention issue there as well, because people are expecting more. So big focus and big pressure on businesses for next year on that. And I guess what happens there is, if you've got businesses that are having to find £200,000 just to kind of stand still, we as a consumer are going to end up having to kind of pay for that, because you're going to end up having to increase your prices. So, or if you don't increase your prices, you reduce your headcount. And it seems a bit of a kind of double whammy, because what they're saying is there's this shortfall, and to try and plug that gap is to raise the funds through NIC costs. But if there's less people in the jobs market paying that, then you're not going to do that. So it just seems a bit of a bizarre way to have gone about it, I think. And speaking to a lot of businesses, I was at a couple of events last week with Career Ready, developing young workforce, and big focus on apprenticeships. What we're kind of seeing is where employers were kind of quite keen to take on apprentices, and I'm kind of saying, well, because of the cost of NIC and everything else in the business, they're actually going to be more inclined to actually reduce their headcount instead of increasing it. So that's a bit worrying to hear that as well.
Can they revoke the budget? Revoke?
Roll it back, or they'll need to make a change.
No, I think they've said that's the budget. I mean, that's from April.
You don't have to be the smartest cookie in the jar. You can clearly see there's a knock-on effect. Like any change, there's a knock-on effect. It's a conveyor belt.
Yeah.
But this is quite critical here, because it's going to impact, again, the employment side. It's going to increase redundancies. You're going to then possibly have people on the dole. You're going to have employers really, really struggling, because even take the big companies like Tesco's, increasing that is a lot of money they're putting out.
Well, I think they've kind of said the supermarkets, pockets. Johnny has said something in the region of £200 million was the cost. So the only way for them to make that money back is either they increase the prices at the checkouts that we pay, or they reduce the number of people they need in the business.
Do you know what? I'm going to try and stop myself here, because we can go down
a rabbit hole.
And start thinking all the negative ways. We could actually just say it is what it is. There's things that's happened from the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the trials and tribulations of life. It's just you have to steer your way around it and figure a way around it. We can moan. We already know the big problems with this. Any of you guys know a way around it?
I think
not so much a way around it, but I think you touched on a good point there, Johnny, around the challenges that businesses have kind of gone through over the different generations, and even everyone in this room today and the guys that we speak to on a regular basis. We've come out of COVID and lockdown and furlough and everything else like that, and had to be resilient, pivot our businesses and try different things. So I think the current business leaders, are genuine kind of leaders, because we've had to demonstrate that over the last few years. So I think we will just take this in our stride, and we'll find ways, but we're not being helped by government, that's for sure. So we're having to kind of find solutions ourselves, and I think most of us will do that, because we've built up that resilience, and we're able to kind of do that.
I do think a lot of business owners will be looking at their service and their product offering, because people are a big cost to a business. Your skill pool is becoming less and less. And I wanted to ask you, Ali, just a quick question is on salary increases, what sort of the norm people are looking at? Because if I'm an A1 employee and I'm doing everything, I'm expecting 10%. Just putting it out there, I'm expecting 10%. If I get 5%, I'm going to be looking elsewhere. Well, how do business owners mitigate that risk? How do they identify? Do they have good enough performance evaluations in place?
So I think Rennie actually helped with this recently. We did a survey of our kind of client base just to get an indication in terms of what salary increases people were proposing for next year. And in the main, it was between 2 and 4%. So that's what businesses were kind of proposing. I think we had one or two companies that were the higher end of that, 10%, and they were in kind of IT kind of sector. So for them, it was struggling to kind of attract and retain talent. But everyone else in that pot is between 2 and 4%. I think that's obviously what the businesses expect. I think employees, if they're expecting 10% increases, then I think they're in the wrong sector or probably not in the real world. I think the increases have happened over the last kind of couple of years with Brexit and, coming out of COVID as I touched on, and there was a real shortage of kind of talent. There has been big increases across lots of sectors in the last few years. Rate inflation was very high. Obviously that is a bit lower at the minute. I know it increased slightly last week, but that is kind of broadly back in the range, and I don't anticipate employers kind of paying big kind of pay rises what they've done in previous years. Maybe employees think differently, but employees, I'm not really seeing that with the clients that we look after. I think there's a realisation from a lot of the people that work in the businesses that it's tough times ahead, and that's just the kind of way it is.
So you would say with the businesses that you're looking at and chatting to the business owners, it's time to check in with your employees.
Should be doing that
manage
anyway.
that expectation. Yeah.
But
you know what? But even myself, sometimes you get too caught in the headlights with everything else that's going on, but missing sometimes the fundamental point.
Yeah.
Checking in with people, managing the expectations and setting, this is what we're trying to do.
Aye.
This is what we need to do to try and achieve this.
The problem with a lot of businesses and people is that, a lot of businesses maybe don't share the financials. And then when they do, there's a lack of education on the people who are receiving it, because they just see the business owner maybe getting a new Range Rover or a fancy holiday thinking the business is making loads of money. Yeah. Or you might talk at a monthly update or a yearly update to say, we increased our turnover by 15% last year. And it was like, oh, that's great. But they've actually not touched on the costs, so don't understand the costs of running the business.
Yep. So I think if you're doing,
I think sharing some of that is important. So if you're saying that your NIC costs are going to go up by whatever it is in a year, is putting that
quantify it.
So the team know that. I think, wow, didn't appreciate that because they maybe don't know that.
I want to just circle back. How often do you, because you're really good with your team, how often do you and your team get together and share information and make everybody?
So we do a monthly update, which is just a kind of general update in terms of what's went well, what some of the challenges have been, and what's kind of coming in the next month or so. And then we do a quarterly update, which is a bit more in depth around the KPIs that we use to measure the business. So we'll touch a little bit on some of the financials, but not in any great detail. Because a lot of it is a case of we're not driven by just the numbers. So if we were just having say this is what we want to do as a sales figure, everybody focuses on that, and you might kind of lose sight of actually looking after the client service, quality, etc. So we share more on the kind of KPIs, and I get that's different for
every
different businesses, but we have got a lot of clients that are focused heavily on sales, and I'll talk about the sales number quite a bit, but in actual fact don't actually share, we hit that number, but it actually cost us a fortune to hit that number because we're doing loads of overtime, or we have to pay for extra machinery, or whatever that might be. So I think if you're sharing these numbers, you need to kind of share all of it so people appreciate that. Because if you just see that top turnover figure, like business is making loads of cash.
If you look at your client base across the road, how many businesses actually do have quarterly catch-ups with their teams, quarterly one-to-ones, or monthly one-to-ones, or even biannual, half-yearly one-to-ones? Is that a best practice, or are people just doing...
It varies. You'll get, certainly manufacturing, it's maybe a bit more problematic to do regular check-ins with guys on the shop floor, but you'll find maybe with the office kind of teams and the sales teams and that kind of thing is a bit more frequent, but you maybe find shop floor type staff, it might be a check-in every 6 months or so, just checking in with them.
So what advice would you have to business owners just now, if they've got maybe 5-10 employees and the cost is going up? What would you do? Oh, this is well, in fact, Michael's been quiet there. You lost your voice, son.
Too much technical stuff going on today.
Here's what I want to throw you on the back foot here. What would you do? You've got your team.
Well, it really is. I mean, entrepreneurs will find a way at the end of the day. When the back's against the wall, you just find solutions to all the problems, and that's just how it goes. It's like running water. It might be a bit slower sometimes, a bit faster other times, but it's constantly moving. So you just have to look at your figures and see where you can maybe make some savings that can cover some of these costs, or it is, like Ali's saying, you need to look at the numbers that you've got. Do you need to actually drop the numbers just to keep things sustainable. Putting your prices up, it's always hard.
Yeah.
You always think that just you're going to lose all customers, but when you put your prices up, people generally will, if the service is good and the quality is good, they will pay.
There's never one easy thing, but I think what I caution is going to a knee-jerk reaction and say my staff cost is 40% of my business. I'm going to cut one head, because what you don't realize is your productivity will suffer, the effect on your team, more people picking up stuff. That's not the answer. That's definitely not the answer. But definitely reviewing your cost, sales, it all starts with sales. Review your sales process, review your clients. There's a lot that business owners can do. Yep. And times are going to be a little bit more difficult at this point in time. And I think that prices, you need to increase your prices every year. You can't keep your prices stable because inflation increases every year. So if you charged £10 10 years ago, it needs to be £10 compounded over 10 years to get your new prices together.
It's important as well to keep moving forward. Like, it's easy to get stagnant and just stay where you are and think that that's, it's going to be okay at that.
And back to your point, Johnny, around speaking to the team, involve them in that process as well. They might have a solution, so it might not be as simple as reducing headcount. There might be a different product or a different service that they might say, have you tried doing this, and you're like, never thought of that. So then it's another opportunity to sell something different.
That's a really good point.
Involving them in that process, they then become part of the solution.
I was going to say that. They'll feel part of that then and be more invested in it.
Yeah.
So here's one for you, a question for you. Do you agree with sitting down with your employee and letting them know how much they actually cost the business with all the bells and whistles on it per week, per month? Would you agree with that?
No issue in that, I mean, and I guess certainly if it's like a sales type kind of role, what you'd be looking to say is, well, this is your target and this is the reason why, because just for you being in the business, this is the cost. So what we need for you is to deliver X, Y, and Z to make that profitable. Have
you had any businesses that you know of that have actually done that?
Yeah, did that in retail actually. They were quite transparent in terms of that. I've seen that before, yeah.
Mm-hmm. You talk about price increases. I've got a client that we increase the price every quarter, but we only increase it by 25p. So over the course of the year, we've increased it by £1. All those little things add up. That's just them being innovative. And how many clients notice 25p?
But it's a nightmare if they own the pound store.
That's true.
There's something not quite right here.
Maybe they should change it.
You got the wrong name on the door, son.
£2 store. But it is. I think the more information you share, you need to share relevant information, because very often I think employees are left in the dark. I mean, you touched on it earlier. Good key performance indicators that you measure. Because what does good enough look like? What does good enough look like for an employee?
And it's finding a balance as well. You don't want to scare them, and everybody thinks, "Oh, we've got a problem. The business is short of cash." Then people start looking for a job, and you lose people you don't want to lose. So it is kind of finding a balance with that. But involve them in the problem, and as I say, they'll become part of the solution.
No, that's a very good. That's a very good takeaway from that.
And then looking to the new year, we're in the wind down. So whether you believe it or not, people are less productive because we're getting into Christmas. That last week before Christmas, although you think you're going to get 100% productivity, you're probably only going to get 50, which is also cool. Well, what can we do in the new year? What do business owners start to really need to look at and take stock of? Because they're people again, lifeblood of any business. So
I suppose you've got, the budget comes in April, so the changes around that budget is in April, so planning for that. So what do you need? What do you need kind of people wise? So is it recruitment? Is it retention? Is it reduction in people? All of these kind of things. So that's going to be part of your kind of people plan. And then where you maybe have gaps as well. If you've identified that we do need to do a different kind of product or service, but we don't have the people to deliver that, is that then internal or external training to bridge that gap with the people you've got, or do you need to go and recruit externally? And what does that kind of look like? So there'll be the sort of things that you'll be thinking about between now and the start of the year.
Could you give your staff extra leave? Because statutory is 28 days. Am I correct in saying that? You have to have 28 days leave.
Yeah.
What is a reasonable number? Is it 38? Is it 33?
38?
So what we see in the kind of private sector is generally 28 or 30 days, and then you'll get other organisations that will offer more based on length of service. So we've got a few clients that will maybe then, if you've been there 5 years, you might get an extra 5 days holiday. But 38 tends to be more public sector or maybe some charities that have been public sector before. But yeah, 38 days in the private sector is pretty is unheard of.
I was 28 days, and then I think we moved up to 31.
Yeah.
And that was
Only.
bite your lip, Squire. Bite your lip. 31. But then you realise the cost of that.
Yeah, the cost to the
But then
business.
you're trying to get the right culture in place, and you're trying to find out what everybody wants and needs are to best serve the business. So they're coming in there, doing what they need to do at their best version of
I
themselves.
think having a little bit, a bit of flexibility on that is important. So I've got we do quite a bit internally. So we can't compete with some of the holidays, but I think we're quite generous. But we do a thing called Moments That Matter. So if somebody needs a day off, so this part of the year is quite busy where, if you've got children maybe in a school play, like a Christmas fair at the school, it's giving them that kind of time off so they've got that flexibility. But we offer things like if people need to take their car in for a service or an MOT, don't have to take that as a day's leave. One of my mates had to take a half day last week to take his car in for a service because his car had to be in the garage at 9 o'clock. So his boss was like, we're going to take a half day. So you have to take a half day in the morning and then work in the afternoon just because he could take his car. Yeah. Whereas we just kind of say, well, you just get that flexibility to kind of do that.
That's the reason why I ask you about leave, because I don't think it's all about money. I think there are other ways to retain people. Salary increases is important because rightly cost of living is going up, mortgages are going up, but there are different ways, and you've just alluded to it. That's a fantastic way to do it. What do you do for staff's birthdays?
They get the birthday off as well. So that was the thing we put in, was that this year? I think we started that, just get your birthday off. And if your birthday falls on a weekend, you either get the Friday or the Monday and just agree that with your manager. So none of the team have to work their birthdays, which is quite a nice
People
touch.
will talk about that as well.
Yeah.
I mean, this year we've had 2 guys that have come to us on the management side, and they've just had the baby. Mm-hmm. And they've had the baby, and his wife's now going back to work. But he was like, look, Johnny, can see Wednesday, it's a bit difficult with the childcare. Mm-hmm. I went, listen, what time do you work? He's like, 12 o'clock. I was like, that's fine. Mm-hmm. So if you can answer your phone through the day and get the wee one sorted and your wife can go out to work and whatnot, that's fine. Other guy is like, I need to take my kid to school on the Monday and then I've got the swimming with him on the Monday, but I need to leave at 3. That's fine. Just because I think when you give that, if you give, as long as you feel that you're not giving an inch and they take a mile on you,
exactly, and
they're conscientious. But he worked in private sector and it was, it was rigid as anything. He says this flexibility is quite nice. It's not to talk about me, but it's just to use that.
It's good.
Give them an analogy and give them some insights that maybe you want to actually, if any of your employees have had a child, think about what it was like for yourself. Mm-hmm. You go, it might be quite difficult for them. Aye. So lend that hand.
Exactly. And you can't put a monetary value on that for that individual. Having that flexibility, then thinking, well, if I'm going to leave your business, Johnny, it's like, well, there's a money side of things, but I might not get that flexibility at another employer. And you don't broach that subject in an interview, so that they're going to stay with you and they're probably going to give you more because they've got that flexibility.
You just sometimes want, we've had a couple of people that have left, but they've come back. Yeah. And it's really interesting, I love that they've coming back. Yeah. They might be a wee bit nervous about it. Don't be nervous, we all make mistakes. No, but it's nice, it's testament to say, well, you do it this way and that way. I'm like, well, what else is there anything that I've done wrong that the other business was doing right, better that you felt? Mm-hmm. And it's just, education is powerful, knowledge is powerful, but you just don't see it at the early stages. You just want, it's me, fight. You're like, take a step back and get an education.
You've just said education is powerful, knowledge is powerful. When people do exit interviews, employees, how honest are they in exit interviews? Are they brutal? Do they slate their employees, or do they? Is there a measure of?
It depends. You get 2 extremes. One is it's really, really positive and it's great, and another extreme is it's how bad it's been, and that's what's forced them to kind of leave. And sometimes the truth's in the middle. So it kind of depends on the circumstances. In the main, I think people are pretty kind of honest in their assessment on that, and it's a good exercise to do. But I think what's more important is to get feedback from the people that are in the business at the minute, and spoke earlier around involving people in the solution. If you're doing kind of different kind of check-ins or forums, whatever, then I think that adds more value than doing exit interviews, because what you're finding is real life data at the time before it becomes an issue and someone leaves. Whereas companies that just focus solely on the exit interviews, it's almost like the horse is already bolted and you're getting that feedback and it's too late.
it's too difficult to change something because you're already reactive. You're on the back foot.
Yeah.
So looking at reasonable check-ins all of the time, more frequently. And I know time is everybody's enemy. Everybody's time poor. But if you don't make that time for your staff, they are gonna leave you around this time, because people do look for jobs. People do want to feel valued. And I think that's one of the big challenges, is how do you make your staff feel more valued?
Yeah. And I think, you're never going to stop turnover. I mean, I think gone are the days where people are in a company for 10, 15, 20 years. That just doesn't happen.
Why?
Variety. People just don't stay in businesses longer term these days. They're always looking for that next.
Do you think it's a generational thing? I want to ask you that. I've got a friend back in South Africa who's had the same job for probably 30 years, and he's only changed jobs about 5 years ago, and that's probably going to take him to retirement. 2 jobs in his whole lifetime, and that's unheard of. That is unheard of. But why is that? Do you think it's a generational thing, or do you think it's more older people that stay in a job for life? It tends
to be a bit more traditional that way. Certainly, we look at the clients that we look after and the people that have been there longer. It tends to be that older generation, and they've been in that business, and that's all they've ever done. But yeah,
disciplines.
And
remember, they never had all the stuff that the new market has. The new people out, they don't have that fast-paced instant gratification. Yeah. So all the jobs that are offered there, you were at, the old saying, it was a job for life.
Yeah,
they used to say that with the cooperative and all these things, a job for life. But yeah, I think that's fundamentally what it was. And there's maybe a fear as well of leaving, where now the generation is not frightened of jumping.
Yeah.
It's a shame that they jump for an extra 30 pence. A lot of people look at the value of the money, make as much money, and then they forget about the things later on. And I think, I'm trying to choose my words carefully, but I think they call it a maturity, a maturity in business, a maturity in employeeship, or whatever, and being an employee. You become more mature, and you realise you start counting the things that actually matter. And the money, yes, it's fundamentally, what am I getting for this? And it equals, what can I buy? Where can I go on holiday? But if you've got a good employer that can have that sit down with you and figure out what your goals are, your aspirations, what do you want to spend your money on? How can I best serve you? So then that can best serve the business. So we can all grow together. I think that's so powerful. It does come across a bit cheesy, and I always say that, the American cheese, but it's so important to sit down and figure out what your team want. And because, this is another one, I think it was Gary Vee mentioned this in some of his podcasts and whatnot. He went, you work for them. No, the other way, they don't work for you. You work for them. You've got to best serve them in the best way you can. You've got to create the path, figure out where the path's going based on what they're saying and what they're wanting. And yes, ultimately, how much profit you can get at. But you work for them. Once you get that in your head, you stop. Well, some
it's
business.
A mindset.
Well, it's a mindset, because some bosses are arseholes.
Yeah, but that's just because they haven't been trained properly into how to manage people,
or they've
not
been hurt enough to go. Because once you touch your red hot cup, you go, I'm not doing that again. You learn.
Yeah.
But some bosses don't. They've got that bravado, that I am this.
With on the cards, flexible working, is that here to stay forever and ever?
As here, I think that's been accelerated since COVID. People just an expectation that there's that flexibility.
What does flexible working mean? Just what does that mean?
So it's not necessarily flexible working and hybrid working is 2 different things.
Yeah.
Flexible working is a little bit more flexibility over your working hours. So that might be, you might work Monday, Tuesday, different hours, Thursday, Friday, might be different. So it's just flexibility in your hours. So back to your point earlier, Johnny, with the guy that's working for you, he's got that flexibility. So
do you need to update your employment contract? Do you need to update your letter of employment?
Yeah, you would be doing that. Terms and conditions would be updated to reflect that.
This is one of the things that I think, Ali, is that when these type of things happen, business owners don't update the documentation on the back end of it. And then when something happens and it goes wrong, you're dealing with outdated information.
Yeah. Or the manager moves on and somebody else comes in, and then it's like, well, I want you in Monday, Friday, 9 till 5. Oh, but previous boss let me do this. Nothing's documented. So that's where it becomes an issue. Yeah. So yeah. Well, then you end up you lose 2 people there.
Well, you know how I'm quite spontaneous sometimes. I just want to put out, we've got a guest today, another guest, and it's Rennie sitting on the comfy couch. So I don't know if he's got anxieties or anything, but let's just see. Rennie, you coming on? Take my seat.
Of course.
On you, Bob. It's nice and hot. I just farted.
Broke wind, Johnny.
Johnny,
I
please.
just want to see.
Put him on the spot.
So, Rennie, tell us a little bit about your journey, because you've joined Ali's team, and tell us a little bit about your journey.
So I was at Glasgow Caledonian Uni. I did international business with human resource management, and I then joined Stainsbury Football Club, joined their charity, did kind of marketing there, learnt a lot there. And then about a year ago, I joined Alistair as a digital marketing assistant and did my apprenticeship at the same time as that. Finished that in September. Now here I am, full-time brand business development associate. So
Look at that. Well done. Well, firstly, big credit to Alistair for, I think you love what you want your clients to do. You live and breathe that. I could really testify that HR Booth, great place to live. But what's your experience about the team, specifically the team? Because we talk a lot about people and the lifeblood, and Ali's a good advocate of that. Everything he says, I would say, does work. Around it, Michael, stop waving at Johnny. For goodness sake. Rennie, what would you say?
it's a really good team. It's very welcoming. I'd say that it starts from the top down. The management kind of set the tone. Everyone's really wanting to help each other. If it's busy, it's always busy for us, but there's always somebody there who's willing to help you, and that's kind of vice versa. I'm willing to help them if they're willing to help me. You kind of build that trust, and then you're also hiring good people as well, which is that's half the battle. You can be good at the job, but if they're not a good person, they're not going to fit in well. So that's the main thing, I think. What's
been your biggest learning? Because you came from uni into a charity, into a real small business with great flexibility. What's probably been one of your biggest learnings?
That's a good question. Probably one that I never thought about was probably working in an office environment. It's not one you really think about, to be honest, but I was, as a student, I was a delivery driver, so I was out all day doing that, and then you're in class, and then you're kind of, I know I did work at a football club, but it was out and about a lot, and then coming into an office 9 to 5, it's very different, but it's one I've grown to love now, so yeah.
Do you like the office environment? What specifically about the office environment appeals to you?
I like the fact you're sitting distance to people. You don't have to message them with Teams and anything like that. You can get them. They're right there if you need them. It's just a good environment. You're kind of in. You get the office banter as well. All that sort of stuff. It's fun.
And that all goes to culture, though. Would you say?
Yeah, definitely.
Create your culture, your ethos. It's knowledge transfer. It's all those big buzzwords we buzz around. Yeah. But it's an interesting perspective.
Aye, but we hit the ground running from the first day. Settled in really quickly. Integrated yourself with the team. I think there was maybe a bit of nervousness for the team because Rennie's role was on the digital marketing side, so I think there was a bit of kind of nervousness. He's going to come up and taking photographs and videos and all of that. So he's built up a bit of trust with the team first, participated in some social events. He's, we go, some of the team will go out for a walk at lunchtime and stuff. So Rennie's kind of integrated himself into that and built that relationship. So now he's got them on side and they'll do a photograph and a video and get them on side with that. So that's worked. But he's doing a great job in terms of what he did with his apprenticeship, and that gave us the confidence to give Rennie that permanent position, and he's doing a great job.
Have you asked for a pay rise yet?
Maybe after this.
or ask for those extra leave days. But what made you, Ali, from a business perspective, why did you go down the apprenticeship route with Rennie specifically? What was it that appealed to you?
Yep, so I think someone took a chance on me when I was younger, and I've been really actively involved with developing young workforce, career ready, and different kind of programs like that. And in terms of the business, we've went out to local schools and done our bit to kind of help. And we also kind of saying to our clients the importance of taking on apprenticeships. It's almost like, so I'm kind of saying that to my clients, need to kind of practice what we preach. So that was when we decided that the apprenticeship option was good. Went through quite a rigorous kind of interview kind of process for that, a selection process, and we identified Rennie, and he was the best candidate for the job, and that's what we did. And we lived and breathed their values as well. Thought he'd kind of fit in, and we'd add something to the business, and he's definitely done that.
Rennie, what's the best thing about your boss? I remember.
Probably
the culture that you set, and the fact that you're willing to take a chance on young people. That's quite important to me. When I left uni, I applied for so many jobs and didn't even get one interview. And it's just kind of right place, right time that I just get an interview with yourself. And then the fact you're willing to take a chance and develop younger people, and then when I'm a bit older, I'll do that with younger people as well. So it's the same values, I think, definitely.
Yeah. Right, and the importance of values.
So I was speaking to someone just at the weekend there, and they were asking me how do we go about finding good people in business, because they just is struggling to get anybody, but they're definitely out there, and there's a bit of patience needed, maybe just the way that you're going around looking for them. But,
Definitely.
yeah, there's a few good avenues you can go down to try and find good people like yourself. So anyway, if you get a bit bored and fed up there, just give me a shout. That's one avenue.
Nothing like Michael poaching your stuff on air. But don't worry, we've got it recorded, and definitely legal ramifications around that. Michael, those are stuff we can say offline, but not online.
We can edit. We can edit.
We edit it out. Rennie, do you enjoy what you do? I suppose that's the big question is, do you enjoy what you do?
I absolutely love it, yeah. I think marketing's... I was saying to us recently, I didn't do marketing at all at uni or college, and it was just something I kind of fell into, and I absolutely love it now. Like, I couldn't imagine doing anything else but marketing. I love the drive to always push your standards, push the boundaries with what you do, and find new ways to create content that will grow the business and grow yourself as well. So I absolutely love it, yeah.
What would your advice be to young people coming out of uni or entering the job market where it's been really disheartening because they're applying for jobs and not getting to interview stage? What would your advice be to them?
I think probably consider apprenticeship route. It's not something I ever considered before. And I think a lot of people associate apprenticeships with like kind of trades rather than like office-based environments. So I'd probably consider that, because you're kind of you're learning on the job and you're getting experience on the job, as well as kind of furthering your education, especially if you've got a chance of a full-time job at the end of it. It makes perfect sense. So consider that, definitely. And
do you think uni's been a worthwhile exercise for you? Or do you wish you just went straight into trying to get employment?
It's a funny one, because obviously what's for you won't go by you. But I think I would say I learnt more in my apprenticeship than I learnt at uni, because you're learning about that office environment, that real life working experience. You're not, when you come out of uni, you're like, I've got all this education but no actual job experience. So I think whilst it was good, you learn how to do, like, you learn a lot about essays and all that sort of stuff. But I think I've learnt more in real life working than uni, definitely.
That's kind of where I was going with it.
Yeah. Did you expect a different answer though?
No. There's definitely more in life skills. Like the academic side's important for some people, but
academic side gives you good book knowledge, and there's nothing wrong with book knowledge, because you need a bit of knowledge. But if you're just going to regurgitate it, it serves you no purpose at all. You need to actually live it, breathe it, and you need to be able to understand it to apply it. And I think that's where your apprenticeship program is really, really valuable, because I see some of the social media stuff that you put out, and it's absolutely fantastic, the stuff that you put out. And I think your content is relevant to talks to business owners. Some of it, you've got that unique balance where it's fun but educational. And that makes a big difference, because, when you employ your first staff member, I think that's the most daunting time in any business owner's journey. And how often do we get it wrong? More than we like to get it right. But having expert people like yourselves just makes it easier. Ali, Rennie, how can people get hold of you? Tell us about what's the best way to reach you?
Yep, so for me it'd be through the website or email, so thehrbooth.co.uk, and then info@thehrbooth.co.uk. For Rennie, probably more likely on TikTok or something like that. I have no idea. But yeah, we're on all the kind of social media kind of platforms.
I'm just
LinkedIn's my preferred choice, but yeah, we're very active on all the other ones, and I'll let Rennie explain where we are.
We're on all of them, so LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. We're even on Twitter, or X as it's now known. I'm still used to calling it Twitter.
Elon Musk will not be pleased with you. He's not going to be happy with us.
And then you've got stuff like MailChimp, weekly newsletters, all that sort of stuff. So you can find us pretty much every platform.
And what's your handles on all the different social media platforms? Do you have different handles, or are they all the same? It's not something like Twinkle Eye 72 at the HR booth.
The HR booth, I think.
Yeah, all at the HR booth.
Okay, at the HR booth. So with that, Michael, what did we say?
Well, first of all, we've had some technical issues if you're watching on YouTube, so apologies for that. And we'll get that sorted for next time. But yeah, this is your world. Shape it, or someone else will.
Brilliant.